Hello, welcome to Scary Town, the Goosebumps and Fear Seat review show. I'm your host, Nightmare Nemo, and this week we're diving back into the Goosebumps Classics line with Welcome to Camp Nightmare. And there's the back cover. The tagline for this one is, "It's the little camp of horrors." And the back says, "Those scary stories about camp are all coming true. ... So, this is a nice break from the norm as far as the setting for the story, because the majority of the Goosebumps books that I've covered are all set in a small town, in a city, in the suburbs, and that kind of thing. And so this one is set in a camp, and go figure, right? So we've got a lot of characters to keep track of. It's mostly a couple of boys. The main character is Billy, because they're all going to the camp for the first time, I believe. And so they're not all like friends, but they kind of like on the bus trip there, they all sit next to each other, so they're already starting. So Billy befriends Mike, who is kind of like this worrywart. He's very meek, and he complains a lot about things. And then there's these two other boys, Jay, who is kind of like a troublemaker. He's very sarcastic. He doesn't really think too much about what he says, and he's a bit of a pain in the butt, like that classic, like the class clown, like always pulling jokes on people. And then there is Colin, who stands out because he's like one of those kids that like tries to look cool all the time, because he has like this red bandana on his head, and he's always wearing these silver sunglasses. He rarely ever takes them off throughout the whole entire book. It's strange. I always think about like maybe there was a twist with that, maybe there's something wrong with this kid. He's always wearing sunglasses on. Even at nighttime he's wearing them. So it's like, what's the deal with this? And then there's two girls. There's Dawn and Dory. Dawn is important because she is not really a love interest, because there's no romance in Goosebumps, because they're too young for that kind of stuff. But it's definitely like there's sparks flying there. He's old enough for him to be really interested in pursuing any romantic relationship there. A few other characters. There's Larry, who becomes the boys' counselor. He stays with them in their bunk camp. And then there's Big Al, who is the head honcho, who leads the whole entire camp. And so things kind of start out very strange, because they're on the bus trip, and then like out of nowhere, like the bus stops, bus driver gets out and starts like unloading everyone's bags. And then like the kids are like, what are you doing? Like, are we here? Like, what's going on? And then he just basically ignores them. And that's kind of like not like a running gag, but it's just something that the adults or the older kids do throughout the book, where they pretend like they don't hear the kids when they're like complaining or asking questions, for the most part. So you kind of get used to that. And so the bus driver ignores them, gets back into the bus, and just takes off. And the kids are like, what the hell's going on? Like, he just like left us here. Before Big Al shows up, the kids hear these animal noises of like these. They kind of look like maybe a little bit bigger than a prairie dog, and they have two rows of teeth. And they're all like sharp and stuff. And then that's kind of weird. I don't think I've ever seen an animal like that. At least I don't think so. So it scares the kids because the little critters are like coming towards them, and then that's when Big Al shows up, and there's a short bus there, and is like he has a rifle with him, and he scares the animals away with the firing the gun like twice. Like the kids like what were those things? You know, that's very unusual. And then he just ignores them. It's like, come on, kids. And apparently everything is explained at the end, but that would be spoiling the twist, and I don't want to go into that. But just to say that there's an explanation for everything that's going on. Things start going strange. There's a lot of odd things happening. Kids are disappearing. Mike is bitten by a snake, and apparently in this camp there's no nurse, so like his hand starts swelling up, and he's just, you know, he's feeling pretty sickly, and they're just kind of just bandaged it up, just let him suffer, and eventually all this stuff is cleared out of the drawers, like all the clothes and stuff, and it appears like he's checked out the camp, but like nobody really knows any solid information, so they just assume like maybe they took him to the hospital or something, but like they don't really say any more than that. Oh, he's just gone. And that happens to a couple other kids where they're just mysteriously they disappear. And so there's definitely something odd going on, and Larry is their counselor, and he answers a few questions, but he's kind of got this like attitude, like he is like he doesn't really care about their well-being, and he's just like, you know, just kind of go get with the program, and you know, don't question what we're doing, and it was just kind of go with what we're planned. And don't get me wrong, the kids are having fun. There's a lot of like they go swimming, they play scratch balls, like a variation of baseball, and all kinds of stuff that you would normally do in camp. So that they're still having fun. So there's still that bit of normalcy, but then there's strange stuff going on where it's like obvious, where like it's at the very beginning where Big Al's like saying the ground rules, and like, you know, you're not supposed to leave your bunk after like there's like a curfew, like at a certain, like I think it's like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, you're not supposed to leave your bunk. And then he points out like there's this bunk that's been abandoned for a couple of years, like something awful happened there. It's the forbidden bunk. Don't ever go there. And it's like you're telling kids to not do something, and you know, obviously they're gonna want to go and investigate the forbidden bunk. You know, so it's kind of funny that they do that, and it's the only bad thing about the story is that it hinges on the twist, because the twist, or the ending rather, it explains everything. So if you don't know it, then everything just kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because there's many trials and tribulations that Billy has to go through, and he's just questioning a lot of things, because things start, you know, at a certain point things just get really out of hand, and he doesn't feel like he can trust anybody, and he just wants to escape the camp, because, you know, he's afraid that something bad's going to happen to him. He's seen enough weird things going on, and he just doesn't feel safe. It reminds me a lot of Invasion of the Body Snatchers in that it slowly builds the tension, and it makes you feel uneasy because there's like this growing state of paranoia where you don't know who to trust, and it's not immediately apparent, but eventually is like information is being withheld. You know, you don't really feel like the counselors, like Big Al, really cares about the kids' well-being, and you just don't know really who to trust. It's weird because it has like the ending explains everything, and then it has a twist on that, and it would have been fine if it's still been a great story, and then it has and like extra twist, it stabs the knife in and twists it, but then twists it again, and it just makes for a really great story. The only bad thing I would say about it is that it hinges on that twist much more than any of the other Goosebumps stories, where you have the ones I really enjoyed, like Monster Blood and The Haunted Mask and Welcome to Dead House, where it's perfectly good story from beginning to end, and it's always has like kind of like the only twist is there's kind of like I gotcha moment where like it's like, oh, you didn't see this, you know, like, oh, the haunted mask is, I took it off, and then, oh, now my little brother has a haunted mask. It's just kind of, it doesn't really affect the story too much. But for this, the twist, it explains everything, and then it tilts the story on your head, where it changes the way you saw the whole entire the story. So it's very unusual in that way. Yeah, other than that, I mean, it's a great story. It definitely keeps you on your toes and it keeps you guessing. And I think it's probably it's definitely up there as far as the books I've covered. It earns its place up there with the Haunted Mask and stuff, because it's the camp setting is very unique in this. I mean, there's going to be a couple more Goosebumps stories set in a camp setting, but this is just, you know, it sets it apart so far, and I just like that, where it's kind of a break from just, you know, the boring old suburbs. So yeah, that's what I thought about Welcome to Camp Nightmare. It's a really good read. I would definitely recommend it. As far as I mean, so far it's like top 10 favorite Goosebumps books so far. So yeah, definitely check it out if you're looking for something a little bit different than your average Goosebumps story, or you're looking for a really good Goosebumps story. Yeah, definitely check that out. All right, so that's all we have for this week. Next week we're gonna go back to Horrorland, and I'll see you then. Bye.